Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork Podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level.
Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast, where we help leaders and teams connect more deeply to themselves, each other, and their purpose. I'm one of your hosts, Hylke Faber. I'm here together with Carson, Heady, my co-host. Carson, how are you today?
Hylke, I'm wonderful. This topic today is how you and I got a deeper connection. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yes, because we're going to talk today about team connectedness practice number 10, reach out often. And that is one of the 12 team connectedness practices, because we noticed in our work that one of the things that happens when in life and at work is that our ego brain thinks, problem, I have to solve it now by myself. Example, I am working on a connected communications game where people learn how to be connected in communications together. And one of our clients totally changed the scope. So what did Hylke do? On his plane, try to come up with a really good rationale to the developer about what we should do next and what the next steps are, blah, 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 given that. And then as I was working on that, I noticed in myself the tension. It's like, wow, this is familiar. Oh yeah, this is Hylke trying to save the day by himself. How about a short email to the developer saying, hey, let's calm Tom. We're going to talk. I got some news from the client that says there needs to be a change. I'd like to talk to you tomorrow. Here's my availability. Boom. And we ended up having a tough, because Tom didn't like it. At the same time, a really good conversation. And my shoulders went from about at my ears, at least mentally, to sort of where they belong, which is about a foot below my ears, as I went through that experience. So I ask you, Carson, think about reaching for help. What blocks you from reaching out for help?
Yeah. A lot of it is grounded in, the environment where we were either raised or where we got a lot of our initial foundation or footing. I worked in sales and sales leadership for a long period of time. And years ago, I worked in an environment that was very, very autonomous. And there was incentive to be and motivation to be, have that lone wolf mentality. Over the last decade plus, I've been very fortunate to work for a great organization where teamwork is not only encouraged, but it's essential. And there's a philosophy, never go down alone. And so to your point, when I think about reaching out often, I think about any time that there is a shift or a compelling event or what we view as even maybe a cataclysmic occurrence in our career or work life or even our personal lives, there is a space between that moment and our impulse and our action. And ideally, we can broaden that gap so that we can come to our action with a clearer head. And that clearer head and that action has to guide us toward reaching out to others. Somebody who has been in this situation before, somebody else who has a vested interest in the success of the project, whatever it is, there are others. You're not alone. It reminds me of that old show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Call a lifeline.
Call a lifeline. And I love that. And I'm thinking about when we reach out for help, how that also affords the other person to do something that we are wired to do, which is to be of service. I have not come across a person yet when I asked them, can I ask you for help? That they said, no. Of course, it does happen sometimes, depending on the context. However, more often than not, you'll get some kind of a yes, because we are wired to help each other. Reaching out also implies this sense of offering help. So when I see a colleague struggling, of course, I'm not going to be the rescuer, but am I going to say, and hey, Mary, how are you doing? What's going on? Anything you need some help with, without being condescending or belittling about that? I think that's a very powerful practice that we can get ourselves accustomed to. When I look a little deeper, this, like you said, goes to very early wiring.
Mm.
Why we don't do that, right? Because we were taught in school that if you get an A and the person next to you get an A minus, you're better. You are separate. And so in school, you're not supposed to help each other with tests, for example. You're supposed to get the test yourself. And of course, there is such a powerful drive towards self-reliance, which I think is very important. At the same time, um, the litmus test I use in asking for help is asking myself, what is a service? Like, okay, I can prepare my own lunch. That's okay. I can do this writing myself. But what's of service when I go into this client meeting? Or what is of service when I think about this difficult challenge? Is it really of service to have this between Hylke's brain and the problem? That is what I'm thinking about. So, Carson, tell us about examples, if you can think of some, with your teams, maybe in an early part of your career where you didn't ask for help, and you tried to figure out yourself, and what was the impact?
I have to go back and visit the ugly truth about my early years as a manager. I think there was a lot of pressure. There's always pressure to perform, right? And sometimes we put more pressure on ourselves than we get from outside. But we were just talking about some of the biggest reasons, the reasons that we're siloed, the reasons that we may be inhibited to asking for help, and could feel like a sign of weakness. It could be, I'm competing against this person. I can't go to them for help because that shows that I'm weak. It shows they're better than I am. It's interesting because I think as I reached maturity in different roles in my career, and believe me, I'm still bad about this even at home. It's hard for me to even ask my wife to help me with anything around here. So if she's watching this, honey, I know. But it's one of those things, Hylke, where when I was a sales rep years ago, I finally realized, like, hey, there are people out here that are performing better than I am in certain metrics. And I want to master this. I want to really get better. So I did. I started reaching out to folks and getting past my own ego in the spirit of, I want to master my craft. And I started sharing the best practices of things that were working for me to make other people around me better. I had to have that same realization as a manager, because I think sometimes I felt the pressure to be the smartest person in the room. Like, I'm just supposed to magically have all the answers at any given moment. And I actually did a segment on this recently, where similar topic, but it's really all about, like, how do we, rather than feeling compelled to having all the answers, a lot of times the best things that leaders can do is tap into the innate knowledge and the skills and the strengths and the superpowers of everybody that is part of that team. Get them sharing. So it's how listening becomes the most important muscle here. And it's very much at the heart of reaching out. When you're a leader, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the answers. And there is no expectation for you to be invincible. In fact, you want to be relatable more than you want to be anything else. You want to be empathetic to their plight and see them and be able to say, hey, I know you have a lot on your plate. I know you're grappling with a lot. What looks like help right now? Hylke, I'd love to ask you, because I know you've done a lot of work in this space, and you work with high functioning teams and teams that are grappling with breaking down some of these silos and barriers. What can we be doing? I know that sometimes it's very daunting to think about doing a drastic overhaul. Like, nobody's going to go out and all of a sudden go from, like, being all keeping everything close to the vest to, like, talking a mile a minute to everybody out there about what can make them better. But if we could take some actions today, what could we be doing maybe a little bit differently starting today to reach out and to look for help? Who should we be looking to learn from, and how could we approach that to break down these silos?
So like with anything, start small and make it easy. So one of the things that I like to do is in a team or in a setting of an organization to identify who do you define as your allies. So who are you going to be making your inner circle? And that doesn't mean there's going to be an outer circle, because that's an important thing to keep in mind. But who are the people that I'm going to entrust with my vulnerabilities? And it's not going to be everybody, like not the person standing next to me at Starbucks, probably, but maybe it is, probably not. Who in the organization do I feel that kind of trust with? And that trust is earned, right? Because you won't ask a child for help on something that they're not equipped to give. You're not going to ask a person that's emotionally intelligence not capable of providing the support that you need, or somebody who doesn't have the strategic insight to be strategic with you. So I always ask people to think about, create a board for you. Ask yourself, what is your board of support? And let these people know, saying, I want you to know that in the next month or so, you can expect a phone call, email, a Slack, an SMS, whatever, from me, asking you for help. And I want you to know I'm doing that because A, I really need your help, and B, because I trust you. Is that okay for you? And because we have now established a relationship and an understanding that this might happen, then when the moment happens, I don't have to jump over the hoop of thinking, is Max going to be okay if I'm reaching out? Because I can hear Max saying in my mind's eye, yes, of course. Yes, of course. So that's one way, very practically, I ask people to ask for help, and also to make it a bit of a metric thing, because our minds is so, and especially in business, so focused on numbers. Say, just like when you go to the gym, like I like to go to do this workout twice a week. My husband wants me to do it 3 or 4 times a week. I'm at 2, right? At 2. I'm just going to stick with 2. But I'm going to do 2. And just knowing that I'm at 1 means I'm going to do 1 more. Same with reaching out for help. I'm going to tell this person, Max, proverbially speaking, that he's going to hear from me at least once in the next month. And he doesn't need to hold me accountable. This is a way for me to hold myself accountable. So I love that question, Carson. How do you help your teams do this?
We live in a world, I believe, where it's easy to be reactionary, and it's easy for some people to hit the panic button based on what data or some spreadsheet is telling us. And often there are people that have knee-jerk reactions. I take very seriously the role that I have in setting the tone, setting the culture. And data diagnosis, it may tell me where I need to spend more time or focus or tweak my system, tweak my process, but I try to never be reactionary. And frankly, it fosters a conversation. How can I start a conversation about what this data is telling me? So let's say I'm talking to somebody on my team. Let's take a look at this. What is this telling us? Hey, we're looking really strong here, 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 and here. And I think it's critical. It's critical that we set the foundation holistically. We can't just jump on a call with somebody and say, hey, this metric's out of whack. What in the world are you doing or not doing? And believe me, I've had managers like that in the past. But I think the key element, Hylke, is that we are acknowledging the sum of the parts. Hey, I think you're doing great at this. I really noticed how you did this. We're always making investments in that relationship. And just similarly, Hylke, we've got to earn the right to be trusted. We've got to earn that credibility with the people that we support and serve. And so when I'm really wanting them to take a look at, some piece of the business or reach out for help, it's going to be a situation where I've already been planting a lot of the seeds going into this conversation. They already trust my judgment, or I have credibility with them because I've helped them see around corners, or I've removed blockers for them in the past. So when we're looking at this metric that might be out of whack, it could be a situation where it's, hey, we really need to improve in this area. What are your thoughts? I want them to be able to feel comfortable articulating where they're stuck. What are the stumbling blocks? What are the hurdles? Is this something that I can do? Is there something I can remove? Or it could be a situation where, hey, you know who else has kind of grappled with this or overcome this, or somebody who's performing really well here is Mary or Jem. What if we set up a conversation? And it's got the barrier to entry has got to be low. It can't be hey, you're not performing, so we're going to build some performance plan where we're talking to your peers, and if you can't hack it, then XYZ happens. It's got to be very, hey, like, let's collaborate. Let's figure out a way to, I believe that you want to get better at this. I'm hearing that there are some blockers. Let's work on those things together. As part of that plan, let's reach out for help. Here are some folks that it makes sense for us to talk to. I'm happy to be a part of that. Let's reach out for help. I think, like anything, it's got to be muscle that we get better at developing. And once people get better and more adept at reaching out and asking for help, very similar to how you articulated it earlier, Hylke, it will become commonplace. I reach out for help all the time now. In fact, it's a lot of what I do. I'm often an orchestrator or a conduit to other resources because I work for a company of 200,000 people. I may need different people at different situations to help in certain cases. And knowing that is so valuable. It makes 1 + 1 far beyond 2.
So we are reaching out, but how it becomes a second muscle, like second nature muscle. The question I'm going to explore after the break is, so how do we make sure that we don't become like dependent, overly dependent, and don't get anything done, where we orchestrate lots of help, and yet at the same time, we don't put our own foot forward? See you after.
You are listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Do you want to learn more about building the next level of connectedness in your team? Please contact Growth Leaders Network on LinkedIn. And now, back to the show.
So we're talking about reaching out, how to make it a muscle, how it helps to do it through repetition. We talked about making it easier to reach out for help because it goes against some of our ego drives, which need to think we have to be super self-reliant and we have to do it all ourselves. We talked about, in my sense, words, is like being on the same side of the table so that there's a relationship of connectedness. We're thinking about this together. You trust me, I trust you. Let me tell you about what I need, or you tell me what you need. And it's commonplace because we know that we are there to support each other. So now to the question, how do we work to not create over dependence when we reach out? Carson, what do you think?
There's a couple of big elements that I apply here. And frankly, Hylke, these are things that, you've helped me develop over the years. One being that balcony view, being able to take that step back and not get caught up in minutia or noise or day to day. There's a lot of creation of conversations and relationships that I do on a regular basis, reaching out for help. These are all projects, or they could be opportunities, or there could be different milestones, or, work that we're doing with different organizations or teams. You have to have some type of governing mechanism. Could be your calendar, could be notifications that you're getting, could be tracked in Teams or Slack or wherever you've got all of it. But you've got to have some kind of forcing function that, in essence, when you're going through your daily non-negotiables, kind of going down through these things and you're asking yourself, what do I need to do here today? Is there something that I need to push forward or, nudge someone or keep things moving? Because at the end of it, you're accountable for that result. So you're right. You can't rely solely on all these good things that you've supposedly put out into the world. And believe me, I say this having made that mistake before. Years ago, when my first year as an account executive, I made the mistake of, trying to pass a lot of batons and almost like try to be the catalyst for something and then trust that somebody's going to go out and do that job. Well, they didn't, because as you can imagine, they also had a lot of other things going on. So, you'd have to find ways to stay top of mind, nudge, have cadences in place. But you also can't swing the pendulum all the way to the other way either. You can't overdo it when it comes to setting these cadences in these meetings, because you'll jump on a weekly forced cadence and you'll just talk about nothing. You'll talk about the weather, and that is a waste of your time, and it's not discipline when it comes to your scheduling. And so you've got to be able to find that happy medium. And I even tell people that I'm mentoring this same thing. You were talking earlier, the other thing that your question spawned for me was the concept of having a board. Your board is going to look different over time. Your advisory board can consist of people, in your 20s and 30s that you don't even really have much contact with into your 40s and 50s, because your scope, your variables, your playing field shifts dramatically. The things that you're looking to grow in shifts dramatically. The people you're reaching out to for help, they could be people that are older. They could be people that have much higher titles that you want to maybe eventually work for or get on their radar. So your advisors, your board is going to look different. But that is a very long way of saying that you've got to make sure that in the day-to-day, you have clear line of sight to who on my board do I need to talk to today, and what are going to be some of the higher priorities. But I tell people that I'm mentoring, don't feel compelled to proactively ask. I think a lot of people feel almost pressure to say, can we meet every month or every quarter? It doesn't have to be that rigid. I want people to feel comfortable reaching out to me anytime. So, and I don't think it's necessary to have a locked in monthly or quarterly, because we may not have anything to talk to, or somebody may feel compelled to just wait until the quarterly or the monthly, but they've got something that's valuable today that they want to talk about. So don't feel pressure to be rigid with the structure of what that help looks like. I love how you said it earlier, Hylke, because it's, hey, a request is going to come from me. I'm working on that. I want to make sure that it's right, that it's a good use of your time. I also want to make sure I'm delivering value. And, when I'm reaching out to somebody for help, I also want to be able to reciprocate. I don't want to make sure that they're just investing in me and I'm not investing in them. So those are the things that I think about, not only when I'm doing this on my own part, but also helping develop that muscle with my team.
So I hear in this a sense of balance and staying grounded in your own truth. So not just mechanically saying, oh, I got the new skill, got to ask for help, chop, 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 monthly meetings or whatever it is. It is finding the balance to say, okay, who do I need to reach out for help to? Is it anybody today? Or is it time for me to sit down and make some stuff happen? I remember a conversation I had with my boss when I was a strategy consultant, and I was in love with the whole process facilitation. So I had these lovely questions for this managing partner. Let's call him Harry. And I got to the meeting with Harry, and Harry looked at me and he said, I'm really disappointed, because I actually wanted to know what you thought and what your analysis showed me. That's why I asked you to do this work, not to only ask me questions. I was like, yeah, you got a point there. You got a point there. So asking for help cannot be, like in my case, a way to avoid you doing the work. So that's the sense of balance. So sometimes asking for help, for me, also means, and this sounds maybe a little odd, asking for help from the silence. So taking a moment, because my brain is on some kind of train in some direction that's not getting me the answer, insight I need. So go on the balcony, take a moment for silence, and just ask, what's needed here? And often the helpful wisdom comes. So that's a way to reach out for help inside, and trusting that inner voice to guide us to what we need to see and what we need to say. I know in a team that I'm asking for help and reach out often is because I feel a sense of collective investment in where we're going and into each other. Like, yeah, this is not about me versus you. This is about all of us together. And I know when that's not happening is when people talk ad infinitum at each other, when they make excuses, when there's no vulnerability. The vulnerability and reaching out for help is often the entry into that higher performance teamwork. Carson, what would you say as final question, because we're out of time almost, to a person that is in a team where, say, the culture is just not, we just, heads down, show up with the result, next one. What would you say to a person who's in that scenario?
One person can be the change, and can be a cultural juggernaut. But I will say that it is very important to instill a culture where seeking feedback and seeking out others makes all the difference in the world. I work in an organization where over the years I've had mantras like "we win as a team." There are awards that are given for collaboration with others. Part of our appraisal process is built on 3 circles, the top being results and performance, but the others being how did you build on the work of others? How did you develop results through others? These are the types of pillars and foundational work that we have to be able to do. Now, that isn't always going to be the case, right? To your point, it's not always going to be, leadership is not always going to set the tone. And I may be talking to people right now that they're like, wow, what is this utopian society that you're describing? And trust me, I've been there. I've also worked in environments where it's been driving, heads down. Even in my role as an individual contributor in the past, or even as a first line manager, or even a second line manager, where the culture maybe above me wasn't the one creating this foundation, I have had the ability to build community. And I think at the end of it, going out and finding these people that are after similar things, that are wanting to row the boat in the same direction, finding like-minded folks, or finding people that can help you get out of your own rigidity. I think about my vision. Often, Hylke, I have tunnel vision. I can see the problem this way based on my experience, but there are other people out there that have had similar challenges, but their experiences are better or more appropriate in these situations, and I can learn from them. And so you think about the blockers and the reasons we don't reach out, or what we think we're gambling or risking. It's often about ourselves, our own ego, and the potential gains for reaching out. The ends justify the means. And so I think one person can absolutely be the catalyst for change. Start seeking out. I mean, that's what do you call that? A movement? Go out and start seeking out people that are like-minded, or that are after the same goals, or that frankly are even just after the betterment of the organization or the department. If you start to seek out these folks, learn from them, share ideas with them, take on and assimilate more people into this group. I mean, that's the very thing that religions and, have been doing for 1 billion years.
Thank you for that, Carson. Thank you for listening. One thing to finish on for today: reaching for help requires us to admit to ourselves that we can't do this by ourselves, or that we don't know. And sometimes also because we want to give another person the opportunity to serve. So there's different motivation. The motivation of I don't know is something that we are not taught. Very few leaders I see on the news saying, I don't know yet. So think about an area where and where you don't know, in those areas where you don't know, ask yourself, what would it be like to ask for help? Maybe from this person that I trust. Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast. See you next time. Connected Teamwork Podcast, where we help leaders and teams connect more deeply to their innate potential, each other and their purpose. And I'm your host, Hylke Faber. I'm here together with Carson Heady. Thank you, Carson. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork Podcast.